Welcome to episode 3 of Advanced Steel Training. So on the previous episode, we saw how to add our columns and rafters the manual way. Today, I'm going to show you another way of how to add your columns and rafters. But now this is controlled by a joint box. You will see what a joint box is. But before we go any further, let's just have a recap of our project. So we're going to go to the PDF. All right, so this is basically the project that we're doing, and it's a gable frame. So we need to add these frames here. We need to add these frame. We need to add that column and that column as well. So we need to add those before we go to the new method of doing a portal frame or a gable frame. And our material for these two columns, demarcated B here. Let's go to our legend. So this is the material that we are looking for. That's a 3 UBM universal beam 356 by 171 by 54. That is what we are looking for. So let's go back to our advanced tool. Where is our advanced tool? Okay, advanced tool, right. Instead of adding new columns again, what we can simply do is just to copy one of these. Just copy from that point to that point. All right, and then we just need to change this to 356 by 171 by 45. I'm sure that is the one that we are supposed to add. Oh, sorry, by 54. It should be by 54. All right, so let's see if we've got a 54. We've got a 51 and a 57. All right, so we can use a 57. It's not a problem. Remember this, the drawing that we're using, it was done in Tekla, so hence the differences. But if it was done in advanced steel, the steel section should be the same. So we check our steel properties. Material, that's the one that we want. Painted, that's good. Position, that's good. Naming, column, that's good. Then what we just need to do is just to extend the column by a bit so that we can be able to add our connection later for this column to rafter. So we just need to select the column, and then you'll see there is a node there that is at the end of our red axis line. So just click on the node and then just drag up. So just drag up a bit so it just goes above the rafter just a bit. Then that is fine. So now we need it on the other side. So instead of copying, I can still copy this, but what I can do is I can select it and say mirror. So just type MI on your command line, say enter, and then select the center of the grid. The center of the grid line, just select that, and then select the other point of your mirror line. Then click at that, select the point, and then say enter. So there's another method of having this column on the other side. So you can either copy it or mirror it, or you can do a fresh insert of the column. So on this end, we are done on doing this manually. So let's see the second method that we can do and what it can do for us. So we go to home. Under home, we go to extended modeling. Under extended modeling, just next to connection vault, to the top right corner, then we see that icon that says portal/gable frame. That is the one that we want. So select that. It's going to ask for the first point of insertion for the column. You click that one, select that one. Then the second point is that one there, and then it's going to ask for apex height or angle. So in this case, I'm just going to say 6 meters for interest's sake, so you can see how we can manipulate that. So 6 meters, then enter. All right, so from here, as you can see, it has given us columns and our rafters. That is good. Now, one thing that I need to point out in advanced steel is that people sometimes do not find doing projects easy because they're not observant in advance still. So as you can see here, it says type and portal frame. And you see here, there is a drop down arrow. Do not ignore this, because some of these tabs where they've got a drop down arrow, it means that there are more options that you're able to select in that section. So let's see what we have. So drop down arrow, as you can see, there's portal frame and there's gable frame, and ours is a gable frame. So let's go to gable frame. You see what I mean? Now we've got columns that we need that we didn't have on a portal frame. So let's go to setup. All right, now we are on setup. I need to make something clear regarding this method. All right, so now this method, what it does is your rafters, the axis of your rafters is going to be on the top flange. For example, let me just close this and change our visual style to 2D wireframe. All right, now if you check the method that we used, when you insert a column manually, right, your axis or your center line or your insertion point is going to be at the center of that still section. So here our insertion point was at our axis is at the center of the web. So to that point there, we can call it a set out point. To that set out point, that is 10 meters. That is 10 meters. But when you come to using this second method now, your axis line is at the top of the flange. It's at the center of the top flange. So now you will see that there is a difference if you take the same measurement, 10 meters here, and you put it, you use it to have your apex height for you using this method. Then you see that there is a depth, there's a difference in depth. That difference from the top to the center there is going to be what you're not going to have on this one, on this method. So now, what can we do to actually have the proper dimension for this? We have to go back to the drawing and get the actual height. The actual height is what we now need, and the actual height is to that point where this this rafter from this side and this rafter from this side actually meet when you miter them. Now that's where your dimension point should start from. But using the other method that we did, we were using the center axis for these rafters. So that's why we had 10 meters in terms of height. But now, since this method is a bit different, we have to measure from the top of that point to our 0 point, and that dimension is giving us 10,157. So we have to use 10,157. So you see the difference in depth. All right, then to the eaves height, to the column height, we're no longer using this 8310. We are now using 8467. These dimensions will actually match the frame that we did manually at first. So let's go back to our project. So we've got 10,157 and 8467. All right, so let's go to our project. So we double click that. So this is a joint box. I'll explain in just a minute. So our total height is now 10,157 and eaves level is now 8467. Then we enter. All right, so that is done. Now I need to explain this gray box. This gray box is a connection joint. What this connection joint does is it brings elements together as a preset. You don't need to add them manually. It brings elements as a preset. As you can see, when we did this method, this box came with the rafters, the two columns, the rafters, and when we changed to Gable, it gives us these automatically. So it is a set of rules that govern how that this connection works, right? But what happens is, with this connection or this connection box, you cannot edit the elements inside manually or individually. What do I mean by that? For example, if I double click this column, as you can see, I can edit the still section. I can edit the position and the angle of rotation. I can edit the model row, which is the naming, which is the column. But if you use anything with a connection joint, right, you cannot individually edit these. So for example, let's double click that one. Let's check. You see, you cannot edit the section. It's grayed out, right? If you go, the only thing that you can edit is the material and the coating. So material, let's change that to that. Let's change to painted, right? The position as well, you cannot change it. The orientation, you can change it as well. The naming and a mobile model row, you cannot change it as well. Why? Because it is all governed by this gray box here. So for you to be able to change anything that came with the gray box or the joint box, right, that means that you have to activate it so that you can change individually. So you cannot edit them individually, like just selecting and trying to edit as its own individual. You cannot do that. You have to go through the joint box. So that's one thing to note. It is the same with connections. If you do a connection, you cannot change those components that came with that connection individually. So if you want to change them individually, you have to delete the joint box. You will see what I mean as well. So let's set out here. We've done our total height, which is good. We have done our eaves level, that is good. Then we go to our section. So for our columns, we need South African environment. We need type S on your keyboard, then universal beams. That should be 406 by 178 by 54. All right, let's just confirm. Yes, by 54. And then for rafters is 305 by 165 by 45. All right, so okay, rafters, we need 305 by 165 by 45. Here we've got 46. Remember that project I said it was done in Tekla, so there might just be a small differences in the description as well. So now the gable columns are the same as the outside columns, so we just need to change them as well. We go to South African environment, then we change to 406 by 178 by 54. There we go. That is the one that you want. So under sections, if you have an overhang or your rafters are going beyond your column, this is where you change, where it says projection. So you can add projection. Maybe the overhang is 1 meter. So you see on one side there's an overhang already that has been created. On the other side, 1 meter, but that is not part of this project for today. We're going to see it in another project in the future. So gable sections we have changed. Now position of the gable post it's in the middle where we want them exactly. Then change the orientation of the column. This is changing the orientation of the outside columns. So if you change that, you see the orientation now becomes different. Split the rafter. You're splitting the rafter where your gable column or the inner columns go to the rafter. The point where the inner column touches the rafter, that's where your rafter is going to be split. So for example, if I highlight this, you see this is a one continuous rafter. But then if I come here and I say split, now you see that it's now split at these gable column points. Right now we do not want to split. Ours is a continuous column. Right, let's go to, we're on gable section, let's go to gable distances. Right, so same settings for both sides. It has taken this as two sides from the apex. So number of posts on the left side, we just want 1. Right, so since we said same settings for both sides, then it's going to apply the same settings. So now this 3 meters is from the outside column. It's from this column. So from this column to this cable post is 3 meters. We want 5 meters. Right, that's what we want exactly. Position of the frame. What this does for us is, you will notice, just take a look at that. Okay, if position says middle, if we go to left, that's what happened. It moves it to the left. It moves everything to the left of the columns on the outside. So we want this at the middle, and then position top. Now we're talking about this is in reference to the flanges. Right, so we wanted it middle. Now the orientation of these two is not what we want. They're supposed to be rotated. So hence, now this is where it gets tricky. There is no option for rotating these two under this this command or this joint box. So in order for us to rotate, we have to delete this joint box. Once you delete the joint box, the governing rules have now been deleted as well. So now you can edit manually or you can edit individually. All right, so if we delete that, let's just check again. You see our section has now been highlighted. You can now be able to change. Let's just change our we'll change our material later. Then positioning, we just want that, and then we just want to rotate it so that it can be the same with the other columns that we added manually. Same as this one, we go to position at the center and then rotate it. That's what we want. So that is the second method of adding your columns and your rafters. So now let's just add these to the layer of columns and select columns. Now, if you have noticed, our material is a bit different. So we need to change this material and change the coating. So imagine you've got a lot of these columns and a lot of these rafters, and you cannot do that individually. It's going to be time consuming. So what do you do? Right, in advanced still, they have got an option, nice good option called select similar, but they have to be under the same layer. Hence I changed the layers for the column to one layer. So for example, if I select this one column, right click and go to this option that says select similar. So I select similar, you see it has highlighted all the columns under the layer columns. Once you have done this, you right click and you go to advanced properties. Under advanced properties, now you can be able to change your still section. So if you want to change your still section, you can change it here so that everything is the same for 06. Then material, you can change everything. So what you do when you select all similar and you say advanced properties, it gets applied to everything under that layer. It gets applied to everything under that layer. So we need painted. Then the naming, we're going to leave it. Why? Because we've got gable post and columns. So the gable posts are the ones inside and the columns are the ones outside. So we can just leave that like that. So we don't need to change that. So let's select even this one, select similar, then right click, advanced properties, then still select the still property is the same. That's what we want. Material, we need steel, and then cold rolled, we need S355JR, and then coating, we need painted. Positioning, it is fine. Positioning, remember, since since it's not indicated here, it's because the insertion point or our center X or our center or axis for these rafter that we added manually and the ones from the joint box are different. So we're not going to touch anything there. We're going to leave it as is because the methods of input were different, but it gives us the same thing that we want. Then naming is rafter. That's what we want. So that's how we do. That's the second option of adding your columns and rafters. Now, let's take a look at our project as well. Right. Our project, we've got these two middle frames. Right. They do not have, as if you look at this plan here, our two middle frames are these ones here. That one and that one there. So these don't have gable columns. So what we're simply going to do is we go back to advanced still, right? We just copy any, whether you want to copy the second one that we did or the first one, it does not matter. So what we're going to do is copy. So we're going to select the center, put it there, put it there. Right. Then this is what we have now. This is what we have. So we have our structure now. We can delete this line, say select similar to delete all other lines that are similar, and we delete. So this is the skeleton that we are working with. Let me just change the visualization to realistic. So this is the skeleton. We are still yet to add our pair lines. We are still yet to add our intermediate beams. If you go to the project, we still have to add these beams here. We still have to add these beams at that level as well. So for now, we can practice the second method, and then on the next episode, we are going to do connections for what we have done so far.